And I am going to record in WebEx. And we are good to go.
All right, so welcome to the January 14th meeting of the Energy and Environment Commission. This meeting is being held electronically to comply with the governor's Stay Safe Minnesota order and to ensure the safety of all residents and staff. All members of the EEC and the staff are participating from their homes or offices. For members of the commission, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and raise your hand if you would like to speak. We will have roll call votes for each motion this evening, as well as for adjournment. I will ask Staff Liaison Grace Hancock to roll call after each motion. I will repeat the motion for the record before we vote, and will also repeat who made the motion and seconded. Before we begin, there are a few things I'd like to cover for those listening in or watching online. The public has two ways to view the meeting tonight. They can watch the live stream on the city's YouTube channel or listen via phone using the WebEx call-in number. There is no community comment during the meeting tonight. The city is committed to hearing and receiving your input on matters. The public can send in comments to the City Council or EEC through the council correspondent web form on our website. Recording of the meeting will also be available to watch on the city's website tomorrow. Go to the Watch a Meeting link under the I Want to tab on the homepage. Thanks in advance for your patience as we work to conduct this meeting online. We hope there will not be any issues, but be assured that we will do our best to continue the meeting as best we can if there are glitches. Thank you to everyone tuning in tonight for your interest in the EEC and our work in the city. So, roll call. Is that what we do next?
Yep.
All right.
Okay. Commissioner DeCane. Commissioner Haran.
Aye, or here.
Commissioner Hushin.
Here.
Commissioner Manser.
Present.
Commissioner Seeley.
Here.
Commissioner Lantis.
Here.
Chair Martinez. Commissioner Mans.
Here.
Commissioner Densmore. And Commissioner Martinez.
Here.
Anna Martinez. Right. All right.
Is a motion to approve the the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And is that Melissa?
Yes.
Okay, Melissa Seeley. Commissioner Seeley, second.
Second.
And Commissioner Bayardo. Next, we need an approval of the meeting minutes of our last meeting. Do we have a motion?
Commissioner Haran, 1 second. I think we need to do a vote on the agenda.
Yep.
So I'll run through this quickly. Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Commissioner Lantis.
Aye.
Commissioner Mans.
Yeah, I don't know.
Peter, I always try to give you the vote. All right.
Right.
The ayes have it.
Okay. So now we need a motion to approve the meeting minutes of last EEC meeting. Anyone?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so motion moved by Commissioner Manser and seconded by Commissioner Seeley. All right.
We'll do the vote. Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Commissioner Lantis.
Aye.
All right.
All right, so next on our agenda, we have a staff presentation, and I believe Jessica and Ross are here.
Yep. I thank you everybody for letting us have a little bit of time on your meeting agenda tonight. I am going to share my screen here. I've got a presentation I do not have the ability to share my screen, I don't think, because I might be just a panelist. Is there a way to promote me to a presenter?
1 second. Let me see what I can do here.
Sure. And maybe I just send you a quick email with this to Grace. You can pull it up there. Apologies.
Okay.
Should have tested
Nope.
this. Oh, there we go. Yep,
my apologies as well. All right.
I can do it now. There we go. Okay, so a little bit of background on why we're here. So we wrote last year, and the City Council approved last April, a flood risk reduction strategy. And then upon approval of that strategy, we shortly after started a project in the Morningside neighborhood, the Morningside Flood Infrastructure Project, which is the first infrastructure project that we're really designing under that new risk reduction strategy framework. And that is something too I want to recognize Commissioner Manser served on the task force for that strategy development. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a run through from some select slides from the December meeting that we had with the neighborhood. And as I go through this, some things that I think I want to hear from this group in particular, things to be thinking about would be the climate factor and resiliency, trees and natural areas. There's some trade-offs and some opportunities that I'll share with you in that realm. Water quality and water reuse, and then also the carbon footprint of infrastructure projects. So a little bit of context on how we view risk. Climate is a really big factor in how flood risk is defined. It's already, climate change is already having a big impact on flood risk, and it will continue to do so in the future. And then the other things we think about when we think about what factors into that flood risk is exposure. So that's the degree to which a structure or building or infrastructure or an asset is exposed to floodwater. And then vulnerability is the degree to which that building or structure, infrastructure or asset can resist damage from flooding. So properties may have the same flood exposure, but they might have different vulnerabilities. So think about, two houses that are right next to each other that are perhaps at the same elevation, but one has a modern basement and the other one has a basement that is an old block foundation that has cracks or hasn't been maintained. One of those is going to be more vulnerable than the other. So what is causing increasing flood risk? Not just in the Morningside neighborhood, not even just in the city of Edina, not even just in the state of Minnesota, but in a lot of places across the nation. For Edina, climate change is a big factor, and it's the lead driver. So we're already seeing the impacts of that when we think about flood risk, and that's going to continue to worsen. That risk is going to increase because of that climate change. The other most important factor is aging infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure, particularly in the Morningside neighborhood, was put in the 50s and 60s, and we have a lot different climate now than we did in the past. So that infrastructure is coming due for renewal, and it's also just built at and we had a different level of risk than we do today. Other drivers include well-drained landscapes and imperviousness, and those are more historical drivers in this neighborhood. We, through our work with the task force, identified structural flooding as kind of the key in defining what flooding means for people. It's not just water in the street or in a backyard, it's when water gets into a house. Is when we're talking about flooding versus something like nuisance drainage. And different ways that it can get into a structure. There's over the land flow where it comes in through a low entry point. There's sanitary backflow. If that sanitary pipe overwhelmed with water during a flood event, then that sewage stormwater mix can back up into homes that are vulnerable in low areas. And sometimes even in upper parts of the watershed, and then groundwater, where it might not even be pouring in through a low entry, it could be seeping in through a failing basement wall. So we kicked off some engagement with the Morningside neighborhood because we were going to be doing a street reconstruction there in 2022 and 2023. We knew it was one of our most impacted neighborhoods for flood risk. And so getting an early start on identifying what we could do from an infrastructure standpoint to address some of the flood risk in that neighborhood before we were there doing a capital project. So we have a webpage at bettertogether.edina.org/Morningside with our whole project history, a lot of the documents and products that we've produced there. So I invite you to take a look at that for a little bit more detail. And then as far as reaching out to people, we've done a lot of, it's been completely during the pandemic. So we've been doing a lot of virtual meetings and distance in-field meetings, and then a lot of online engagement. So this is what we've heard over a series of a few meetings online and then a couple in person. Flooding experiences on individual properties. Some people have had their homes flood. Other people have seen their properties flood. Other people have been there for a long time and have experienced that. And some people have been there for a relatively short time and haven't had to endure a flood event yet. There was concerns about recent redevelopment, the possibility of land acquisition, impacts of climate change, restricting construction on high-risk properties, benefits of options. There's some natural resources, trade-offs and opportunities I'll give you a little bit more detail on in a minute. The cost of options and how that gets paid for, and then the interrelation and causes of flood risk.
Excuse me,
So,
Jessica.
like I said, there's some street reconstruction. Yep.
What are the highlights? Why were
those were the most important ones that we heard, are the ones that we heard most often. So those are the ones that we just wanted to highlight. Those seem to really ring out as major themes.
Okay, thanks.
Other ones we might have heard here and there, but those were the most commonly heard. Thanks for asking that. Any other? I'll take a quick pause here. Any other questions right now? All right. We have a couple major capital improvement projects planned for 2022 and 2023 in the neighborhood. So total street reconstructions where the pavement is removed, utilities are upgraded, renewed, moved. So this is a good opportunity while we're already there doing work to, if we're going to do some infrastructure related stuff for reducing flood risk, that this is the time to do it. This is the timeline of the project so far. So we've done some engagement, that's the green sections. Those are kind of more discrete engagement events, but of course we're taking feedback and having conversations with people all the way through. And we are preparing in March to have a work session with City Council, and then in April to bring them our staff recommendation. And so we are at this point where we have tested some ideas and we've heard some feedback about what people value in the neighborhood and things, trade-offs they're willing to make. And we have a refined concept. I'm going to walk you through where we are at today. And then we're still working through some that design a little more before we make our staff recommendation later in March. Part of the engagement is check in with our commissions, in particular the Energy and Environment Commission. We're curious what your comments are around things like climate, water quality, water reuse, natural resources, trees, and carbon. And then in May, the construction division is going to start their design work for the street reconstruction. So they would take the concept design for flood infrastructure that City Council approves, and they would incorporate that into their street design. And then come spring of 2022 is when construction would start on one of the neighborhoods, and then that would go through that summer and fall, and then also another section the following year. Oops, going backwards. So we had a few goals when we set out for this infrastructure design project. We wanted to safely store and move floodwater by repairing and upgrading aging infrastructure. And we wanted to share the benefits and risks neighborhood-wide. And we tested 5 scenarios. And in those, we were playing with storage and pipes and flood walls and pumps and timing of flow and overflows where water flows across the surface, not in pipes, to see what kind of value we could generate, what kind of benefits we could generate, and then what those trade-offs would be. And in the end, after trying those 5 scenarios, there wasn't any one that was really perfect. In all of those scenarios that we tested, there was some risk transfer where some people in the watershed were benefiting from that project or that particular scenario, and then others were not, and risk was actually increasing. And we didn't like that, and we knew that the neighborhood would not be in favor of that, and so we took a step back and said, you know, our philosophy with this design is no one should have an increase in risk anywhere. So where can we really take what's working and expand it as much as we possibly can, and then drop what's not working or what's just not value. So we used that engineering exercise. Then we also took what we heard from people who live and visit the neighborhood so that we could really refine our concept design. So what have we tried? Various pipes, storage in various places. That generally means excavating or putting storage underground in big vaults. Surface overflows, so just directing water on the surface, not in a pipe. Ponds and pumping that water out at different times, and then kind of combinations of those things. So the picture here, you can see the blue is where it's wet during a 100-year flood or a 1% annual chance flood. That's a 1 in 100 chance every year of having an event of that size. That's 7.5 inches in 24 hours. And then the orange and yellow, the orange are the pipes, and the yellow would be essentially like the access points, catch basins, and manholes. So this is our concept level design. So we don't have a lot of detail about pipe sizes. We have some general ideas, and pipe alignments. We have some general ideas. We're at this concept level, and we have a good idea of about where the pond would be, but we don't have quite that super detailed, like engineered detailed level. That would come at a later point. We're at this concept level right now where we have a pretty good idea where and what elements we would have. So for storage, Weber Pond would be expanded and deepened, and the depth would depend a little bit on kind of how far we wanted to take the project. And then this Lynn and Kipling inundation area. So if you've visited this space, this is what's Weber Woods right now, and there's a lot of trees in that space. So if we were to expand Weber Pond significantly, as we're showing here in this concept design, that would mean a lot of trees would be removed. We're thinking like 4 to 6 acres worth of trees would be removed. And the tree removal would extend a little bit beyond what you see here outlined in blue, just because we can't just have a pond. There's got to be a little bit of grading when we do that excavation, so it would extend just a little bit beyond that blue area that you see. But we see this also as a big opportunity to reinvest and enhance those natural areas throughout Weber Woods. Same story for this Lynn Kipling inundation area. So it would be a big excavation project, deepening this, expanding the boundaries within this park space already. And it would mean tree removals and probably overall less trees in the end, although we could plant some new ones around the edges. But again, we see this as a big opportunity also for enhancement of natural resources. Avail Academy, we see some opportunities for storage there. And Susan Lindgren, well, we tested that, Avail Academy, Susan Lindgren, and Weber Field. In the end, I don't know that those are really going to make it into our recommendation. We know that Weber Pond and this Lynn and Kipling inundation area, those are really key foundational parts of our concept design. Pipes that we looked at, there's several. You can see the blue areas are pipes that we're proposing to add or expand. And those just help move water more efficiently from this east to west to Weber Pond, which eventually goes a little bit north and then east over to through Minneapolis. And then one pipe here that we're would propose removing. And then here's a pump station so that we could pump out this additional water that gets stored here in Weber Pond, and pump it out through that existing pipe that goes toward Minneapolis. So there's different levels of achievement here. So there's kind of this good, better, best, or big, bigger, biggest in terms of size, or expensive, more expensive, and very expensive options. We know that this storage, the surface storage at Weber Pond and the Lynn Kipling area and the conveyance to move some water there, those are really foundational. So we have to start with those. Those are things that wouldn't really be, that's where we're going to start. If we wanted to get more benefit, it would be a bigger project and cost more. We would add, the next most valuable thing we would add is a swale here to help move water across the surface through the park, and some more piping, expanding the conveyance that's here already. And then the biggest, most expensive option would be more storage at Avail Academy, Susan Lindgren School, and additional pipes to move water from those spaces. So here's a quick summary, and I'm going to try to get through the rest of this pretty quickly so we have time for some conversation. We're looking at, existing status quo. If we were just to come in with a street reconstruction project and replace or renew what's already there, we wouldn't have any, we wouldn't get any benefit from that. And we would spend about $2 million typically in a neighborhood just doing the kind of straight replacement of what's already there. The next option, which provides some good benefit, would be removing 6 structures from risk and reducing risk for 106 structures. And you can see the annualized benefit there from a reduction in damages for those structures and the cost. There's some trade-offs though. It would be a major removal, big excavation project in those park spaces. A lot of trees would be removed with that. In the bigger option, we see even more structures removed or reduced risk, better annualized benefit, cost more money, those same trade-offs and opportunities, but even more so. And then the biggest option, we start to see a little bit of a diminish in our return here, but still a few more structures removed and one more structure reduced in risk, a little bit more annualized benefit, a lot more cost, and those same trade-offs and opportunities. So this is what it looks like today. Blue, the darker the color, the deeper the water. And then for these structures, that is the level of risk. So the lighter orange color would be the lowest level of risk. And then as you get into a darker orange color, the risk is higher. And this neighborhood is coming too because it's just not the right for a PowerPoint slide. So here's Weber Woods and Weber Pond, and then this area on the right is the southern part of that neighborhood. So this is existing conditions, and if I flip back and forth, you can kind of see when we get to that good option, that means excavating Weber Pond, excavating this open space between Lynn and Kipling, and you can see a reduction in risk for those properties. Early on, we were looking at some scenarios where risk was added for some properties, and you'll see that we don't have any of those in these modeled pictures here, but you see some homes that are removed from risk or where the risk is lower as we go from existing to good. In the better option, there's more structures where risk is removed or lessened. This is the adding of that swale through Weber Park, and then the underground features, the pipes that convey water more efficiently to that space. Here you can see this big excavated area where we're really utilizing that space to store floodwater. And then here's the best or the biggest or the most expensive option where we have the most risk removed without increasing risk for anybody. And then that adds a little bit more storage up here at Avail Academy, Susan Lindgren School, and then the conveyances that bring water through there. We think that in the end, the recommendation will be somewhere between this good and better option. So somewhere between this 5 to 10 million option, which might be actually a little bit more like 7 million or 12 million once we add in kind of that existing status quo amount. there will be some cost savings there, but probably not really significant. And then these are our next steps. So we're here in this phase. We're presenting our refined concepts. We've talked with the neighborhood. We've talked with the neighborhood association. We're shopping it around now to the commission. So this is our first commission presentation. We're going to check in with the planning commission and then also the Park and Recreation Commission. We've had some conversations with staff. We're continuing to do that with other departments too in the coming weeks here as we refine our staff recommendation and bring that to a council work session in March, and then ultimately our final recommendation in April. So I want to just take this is the end of the slides, and I want to check in and see if there's any questions or comments right off the bat, and then I have some more specific things that I want to check in on from the group.
No questions? I guess I have one, and I can't remember if you're going to go over this, but like the neighborhoods, I would imagine were the input, like the taking down of trees, was that a huge concern?
I think what we heard about the park was that people really enjoy that space, and especially now are using a lot for walking and dog walking, and they really value the trails. I think it feels like people are kind of weighing it as a trade-off. You know, I don't like losing trees, but I think there seems to be some urgency and some desire for a flood risk project to happen. So I think we've heard from people that are really concerned about losing natural resources. They seem to, and I should back up a little bit because I think there's a big opportunity for enhancement here actually. So I think there's some, you know, do what you can, but only what you have to is kind of what I've heard from people. Like, do what you can, but save as many trees as you possibly can. We haven't heard a hard nose from people. It's just do as much flood risk reduction benefit as you can while protecting as many trees as you can is mostly what we've heard.
And then also on your maps, I noticed like there'd be houses that are like gray, and then right in the middle of a gray one would be like a bright green one. And I've noticed because it's kind of right next to my house or near it. So how is it that one could be like taken off risk and the rest of the homes don't have risk at all?
Yeah, and it really has to do with the elevation of a structure. And we don't have super detailed information for every house about what their elevation is or how deep a basement is or where a window well is. That's just a level of detail we don't have. So this is really just like at a neighborhood scale, we can get a general sense for the benefit that this infrastructure change could have. If it's at a specific property level, we want people to reach out to us. So if you wanted to check in with us, I'd be happy to kind of look through in a little bit more detail at your specific property to see what kind of risk you have. And then we also, I think, and Ross maybe can chime in here if he knows more about it, but this might also include a little bit of that sanitary backflow risk. And so that might be depending on how low your basement is, whether you'd be exposed to that flood damage, flood exposure also. Ross, do you know if this is showing a sanitary risk or is this strictly surface?
Yeah, that's right, Jessica. This provides kind of a comprehensive view of risk based on how we defined it in the task force. And that includes sanitary backflow and groundwater risks. So to get actual house by house information, we made a lot of assumptions. So I like to reiterate the point that Jessica just made that we're having conversations with individuals and giving them specific information so that they can compare it against their surveyed elevation, or we can do a better job of estimating with some exchange of information. And sometimes even after that, they still don't quite know where their basement is, but they know more or less how close we made the initial guess.
Okay. Thanks.
I would argue that a net reduction of trees is not acceptable. If we're gonna, I totally understand the the value of the project and the need to remove trees in that project. But then I think the city needs to figure out how to balance that out elsewhere in the city so we don't end up with a net reduction of trees. That's wearing my tree hat.
Yeah, no, I agree with Richard. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, that's the question I had. Like, I know you mentioned, like that there was gonna be like some replanting around the lake, but like, is there a reason like why there's not gonna be like a full like replanting program or something like that? Is it just like because there's no space, or like why aren't we replanting all the trees?
Yeah, I think we could add as many trees as could fit in that space. I think what we heard too from the neighborhood is that they really like the trails that currently exist in that space. So our design would include incorporating some trails and some loops. So we would try to accommodate those too in the design. So we'd have to make a little bit of space for that. And then as far as adding trees in other places outside of Weber Woods and Weber Park, we are looking for spaces all the time to add trees. Our city forester is adding trees. He's just like Richard, he speaks for the trees, and he is putting them everywhere he possibly can. But I hear that comment where, if we're going to remove trees with this project, we ought to put back as many as will fit, and then find spaces in other parks perhaps to compensate for that.
I'd like to add something to that too. When we think about the kind of the design philosophy, lowering those water bodies and increasing them is just going to mean less land for trees. So there's going to be less space for them. I don't know if we'll get, a net equal, but the shape of that pond was really to follow the landscape, and it tries to avoid what we would consider as higher quality and better habitat trees like oaks, and it aims more towards some of the volunteer trees that are really in the low floodplain forest area, so the high cottonwoods or box elders. Now, both of those serve their ecological purpose, but I think I like the big oaks, the real old growth hardwood, and I would rather avoid those than the cottonwood, which have some of their, they've got definitely a lot of benefit, but they also have some more negative elements. And then the natural resource restoration potential, when I think about what really we hear a lot of is we want to walk loops, we want to be able to enjoy those natural spaces, and then we want to see wildlife, and we want to see a wide variety of habitat for, it's a dinner plate for the different critters that are coming through there. And that doesn't always mean you want to pack it as tight as you can with trees. Sometimes that means you want to have a good diversity of things all the way from wildflowers to understory canopy, berry bushes, and then the really high canopy trees as well.
Well, Ross, I was thinking more from the macro scale. I fully agree and understand that, the density at that location may not be there, but from a citywide scale, I think it's more like mitigation credits. If we're going to take out a third of the trees here, let's figure out where in the city we can add that many more trees. So the net balance in the city is at least increasing.
Gotcha.
Did you get a lot of people in that Kipling Lynn Street area around that marshy area to participate, just because they would be affected quite a bit? So enough of them gave input.
I'm making new friends in that area every day. So yeah, I've been out on many site visits, and it's like a second home now.
Excellent.
Yeah, and they have a very personal relationship with that open space because it's their backyard or side yard, or it's the lot across the street. And that area has been a really good neighbor for the most part, except when it overflows its banks and fills everyone's basements. So if we can just, get that neighbor to be a little kinder on the flood side, hopefully, in 5 years after the project, it's going to be a beautiful, wonderful space, and there'll be even more to love about the natural resources.
Great.
Yeah, and I think what we heard from people is, you know, there's some flood risk here and we're concerned about that. And also we really love this natural area. And when I've been out there, they're not super high quality natural areas. So, you know, there's kind of that ecological integrity. So we had a rating of Weber Woods done in from a scale, you know, A, B, C, D, A being the best and D being the worst. It was a D quality ecological area, which is different than tree canopy. You know, it has plenty of leaves, but it's not a super, uh, and there's certainly wildlife that are there, but I think there's a huge opportunity to make it a better space for wildlife and for pollinators, and same with that open space between Lynn and Kipling. Huge opportunity for improvement there.
It's hard to say that a natural space that people love isn't high quality, because people have a feeling about it and they love it, and it's like you just told them that their grandma could be better.
Or
So,
that their kid is ugly or something,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, right. Yep. And I think too, we're getting really good at these natural area enhancements. So Braemar Golf Course, Arden Park, Lake Cornelia, we're doing a lot of ecological restoration, and we're getting pretty good at it and give some good examples of those.
Jessica, real quick, so thank you. This is a very interesting summary and report. So climate change obviously is going to, as you mentioned in the first slide, it's a big potential impact. What kind of forecast or potential, you know, here you've got a 50-year storm. What variables are you taking into account for this renovation?
Yeah, so we are using the most current precipitation data, which gets us up through, I think, late 20th century. We do expect climate change to continue to have to intensify in the future. So this model that we're using is going to become more outdated as we move forward in time. So we do expect it to get worse. We think this infrastructure can provide a lot of value. And then outside of this infrastructure project, as properties come up for redevelopment, we're holding them to some elevation standards so that those low properties be redeveloped in a way that reduces their exposure, or other projects, maybe not a full rebuild, that reduces their vulnerability. That's kind of our long-term generational strategy. We tried as hard as we could, banging heads against the wall to get as much benefit out of the infrastructure as we could, and we still couldn't reduce the risk for everyone. Some of those houses are just so low, and it's a low area in the neighborhood. The soils aren't super great. It's an old ditched wetland area. So I think the infrastructure part provides a lot of benefit. It's certainly not going to solve it, and climate change is going to continue to make things worse in the future. So we're layering on that approach too, where as properties redevelop, we're going to make sure that people are being reducing their exposure and their vulnerability as time goes, but that takes a long time.
So I've got one additional point to add. It's to kind of future-proof this. You know, we don't achieve, you know, fixing it for everybody for the current day 1% probability event, but we modeled something that we call the 0.02% probability event, and that could be used as a surrogate for a future climate change scenario. And it's the difference is 7.5 inches in 24 hours is our current number, and that future number might be more along the lines of 10 inches in 24 hours. So we want to see what that looks like, and there's an idea in engineering called fail safe, where you know what it looks like to fail. You know that your infrastructure is designed to a certain level, and that over it will fail. But fail dangerous is where, you know, it goes and sweeps a house off of its foundations, and fail safe might be more where, you know, it's flooding roads for longer, or it gets into a basement. but it's in a lot more planned places. And if you know what it's going to look like in the future, or at least you can have a sense for where the major flow paths are, where the major danger points are for velocity, you can react a little bit better and make plans to start mitigating some of that risk. So I think that's our long-term approach. It's really about risk awareness and risk mitigation.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Other thoughts or reactions? Someone might have just started. About climate, resiliency, water quality. We think there's a chance here to do a little bit more focused work on water quality, although it's largely a flood risk reduction project. There's some opportunity for water reuse potentially with the fields if we did a project here. Other thoughts or reactions or questions, criticisms? We want to hear it all.
Oh, overall, this is pretty exciting. It's great.
All right. Well, I think that's, Ross, do you have any other parting questions or thoughts?
No, I think if you have a copy in your agenda of the presentation tonight, and if more thoughts or questions come up, you're as welcome as people in the neighborhood to give anyone on the staff a call and ask other questions. And thanks for your time tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys. It was wonderful as usual.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
Ooh, okay, so next we have special recognitions and presentation. Nope, that was what we just had. So reports and recommendations. So the 2021 work plan update.
Yes, and I am going to share my screen so that we can walk through it. Michelle, you can lead us through it. Okay, you should see my screen.
All right, I'm going to have to enlarge this quite a bit. You can see it. Unfortunately. Okay, so, all right, so initiative number 1, our city's climate action plan. So, Grace, are we first talking about leads on this? We want to, or do I need to go through?
Yep, I think as we walk through, we can talk about the areas where we still need a lead. So I think that this was one where, I see Chair Martinez's name here as the lead, so this might that we leave as is. But I know that there are maybe a few further down that we want to confirm.
Okay. All right, so we can, all right, so we can move on to the next one. So initiative number 2. So our recommendation development of our to-go packaging ordinance, deliverable, the report and recommendation. So leads, we've got listed Decani, Horan, Martinez, Seeley, Lanzas. I worked on the packaging ordinance in the past, so I would be more than happy to be a part of that. And Commissioner Seeley as well. I know you're on it only a couple more months, but.
Right, so whatever logistically, I don't know if it's reasonable for me to be listed as a lead. I'm happy to still work on this. I'd love to see this particular project through to the end. It doesn't matter to me, just procedurally, whether I'm listed as a lead or not.
Okay. Grace, and do we create a working group then on this, or is it just commissioners working on it?
Just commissioners working on it informally. If you wanted to bring in members outside of the commission, that's when we would look into a working group.
Okay, because yeah, Melissa's got a lot of history and would be really helpful to have her on.
So that would be the question then. So if I'm not a commissioner,
Right. So
Right.
you guys will just have to figure out if you want to make it be a working group situation, or, I mean, maybe again, you know, I don't know what anybody's idea of the timeline is here, but, you know, again, Michelle and I have a lot of data and history on this already. So it seems like it could be something that could move pretty quickly, depending on whatever the timeline is. So again, however you want or need to do this based on my standing within the commission, I'm fine.
all right, so the target completion is December 21, 2021. So can we just set it up, Grace, as a group that, could we just do a subcommittee then? Or no, because then Melissa couldn't be on it though.
My suggestion for this one would be that this perhaps be a higher priority while, Melissa, you are still part of the commission. So over the next month, essentially, through your final meeting in February. I think your last meeting is February. And then that's your final meeting, yeah, next month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be that back to the commission in February as a decision point. Do we, based on progress to date, do we recommend going forward with a working group to involve non-commission members? Or is it far enough along that isn't necessary?
Okay, so basically if we worked and were able to revise our report and by February actually come up with a recommendation, we could just keep working as is. If we find that we're not quite there and don't feel comfortable with making a recommendation, then we just decide whether we want to change this to a working group and have Melissa stay on or whatever. So something like that.
Yep.
Okay, so and then the other people listed, can we, like I said, I would really like to take the lead on this just because I have all of that stuff in my computer. It'd be pretty easy. But I don't know if I need to not be so possessive.
Well, I know we have Anna and Bayardo on the line, so it might be good to hear from them. But yeah.
I mean, I know I can't be a lead, but I'd love to help you out with this one because it looks really cool and I would love to help.
Great. Bayardo?
My understanding, yes, I'm still on it. Glad and happy to be on it. My understanding is that most of the work's already been done. So it'll be basically like just updating and try to match to whatever ordinances have been passed by Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Mm.
And if we can add something, great. Otherwise, try to just update it and push it to council.
Okay.
The sooner the better.
Great. So then, Grace, my recommendation was that the group of people listed, we can start meeting as soon as we can and try and come up with something before our February meeting.
Yes.
Okay. So do we have to vote on that or anything?
Nope.
Okay.
You can just go forth.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question about how it works for student commissioners. Do I have to be like a lead on this to help out with it, or can I just like kind of jump around? Because I would be interested in helping with this. So, however, I put my name in on that.
I think it'd be great. So, all right, I'm going to make a list. So, Peter, Anna, we've got Melissa, Bayardo, and am I missing someone?
Ukasha.
But he's okay. So I'll just have to see if he wants to. Is he here?
He is not on tonight.
Okay, so what I will do is after this meeting, I will like tomorrow try and get an email out so we can start getting meeting dates, and with a goal of finalizing that report if we can by February.
Sounds great.
We are so ambitious. Okay, great.
Grace or Michelle.
Yes.
Memory was Commissioner Decane and the December meeting.
Commissioner Decane was at the December meeting, yes.
Okay, so was there another question? I didn't hear you.
No, I was just making sure because he seems to be missing a lot of meetings.
Agreed. And I will touch base with him. Okay, so next item. Okay, so tabling. We've got a bunch of people in the leads category, and I don't know, I suppose, Grace, this is be interesting as far as what our summer's going to look like, if we're all going to be in person or not.
Yeah, I don't think we can make, I don't think the city has made any calls yet about what will be, and if any gatherings will occur in person over the summer. Farmers markets, of course, are outdoors, so that opens up, that's a higher probability. But I would say for now, my recommendation would be to hold off on any big decisions on this particular initiative, just given the ambiguity of the summer.
Okay. One question, would it be smart to have just like a point person to have one lead, like designated point person, so if we do get something, we know who to contact right away, or does that matter?
I think that would be fine, especially because our organics coordinator does a lot of interfacing with the commission for this. So I think that would be good to have one person in particular as the point of contact.
Okay, so anybody in that list have a desire? All right, Commissioner Lanzis is raising his hand. Okay.
Me.
Excellent.
And it seems like it would be reasonable to take me off of that since the completion date is in the summer when I clearly will no longer be on the commission.
You can always volunteer if you want to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so that takes care of that one. Next is, okay, so city's green building policy. I'm going to defer to you, Grace.
Yeah. First, I'll take off former Commissioner Jackson off of this. This is the version that was approved in December. And then second, this will be a review and comment. I'll present the policy to the commission writ large. So I think beyond Chair Martinez, there doesn't need to be another lead or group. It'll be a similar presentation to what you had from Jessica and Ross tonight.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And so that takes care of that. So the business recognition program. So where we're at, it's actually, well, I think it's kind of exciting. We have all the evaluation team and myself and Grace have got a survey. There we go. And it's a Survey Monkey. And so Grace built it out. It's kind of all ready to go. We're just going to put together an email and get the names and hopefully be able to get it out in the next week or two, I'd imagine. So we need to complete this by Q1, end of Q1, and we have a couple months then to have the back and forth and trying to get a hold of businesses. So I feel good that we will be able to accomplish this and hopefully get some good information about it. So we're moving along. So thank you. So we've got Anna and Peter and Paul and Carolyn is helping on this as well. So thank you all for getting on top of that. So, and Grace, of course, finishing touches on everything. Okay, so this is you, Grace?
Yep, this is a similar situation. I'll present to the commission on the CAS fund proposed capital improvement plan, and it will be open for comment by all commissioners, so we don't need a lead.
Excellent. Okay, and this too is
same, I think same situation.
Yep. Okay. Phew. So any questions on work plan stuff from anyone? All right, Grace, anything else that I need to address on that?
Not on the work plan. I think we're ready to move to the next item. Great.
Okay, so we have a presentation by our student commissioners. So Peter and Anna, they are going to present on the work plan, the approval climate action plan working group charge.
All right, so this is basically the document that potential members for the Climate Action Plan Working Group will look at to see if they're interested, to see basic outline, and ultimately we'll have application questions. So we can just go through it section by section, and if anyone has any comments or suggestions, feel free to speak up. So the first section is the purpose, just a general overview of what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah, it has a few paragraphs and then some objectives that you can read through.
Yeah, and the next one is like the objectives, and these are like like a lot like in the purpose, like you can also see like a lot of these objectives, but basically like the main ones are like the greenhouse gas emission inventory, and then like a list of like priority actions, a community engagement plan, and like tactics and strategies for like how to implement the actions that the working group decides that should be implemented.
Just let me know when to stop scrolling.
All right.
I think we can stop at this section here. So resources available to just, this is just for potential applicants to see what will be available to them. And the biggest point here is that first one, in that it's not really set in stone from the beginning. Working group in their first meetings will be able to decide what they need. And they'll have access to different city resources, a consultant, staff liaison, as well as the EEC.
Can you stop there? And I guess like this is an important, well, this is definitely an important part. It's a timeline. So today we're supposed to like approve the working group charge, and then at their like, oh, that tomorrow like the application for members like will be open, or for like members of the community, so they can start applying for the working group. And then at our next meeting, we're gonna approve the members, including the chair, who will be one of the people from the commission who are gonna be a part of the working group. And then on the 17th, the consultant will be hired. Then the first working group meeting will be like around mid or late February. And by May, the consultant should like present the progress report to the working group with a lot of the deliverables. And then in August, it's the second progress report from the consultant. In September, the consultant presents the draft to us. And then the council receives the final plan on December 21st.
All right, so I guess, yeah, roles and responsibilities. So there's a lot of different parts to this. So our commission itself will approve and remove members, both within ourselves. 2 to 3 people from the EEC will be part of this working group, as well as a few more community members as well will be in charge of approving them and approving the chair of the working group. And the city manager will also have some authority and roles within here. And I think the biggest one here is the consultant, who is very important to this group. It's a professional who has a lot of expertise and will be working closely with the working group to deliver a lot of our goals and information.
Yeah, and just like in that part, the consultant will be like more focused on like the technical aspect, I guess, along with Grace, who will bring a lot of like the technical knowledge as well. But the working group, like their main focus, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Grace, but it's more like they're focused on the like community outreach. And of course, they're gonna like review everything that the consultant is working on and help out with that. But like their main goal is to like reach out to people and come up with strategies to do that.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we've hit on a lot of the membership here, in that it's 4 community members, 2 to 3 energy environment commissioners. One of them will be the chair. And yeah, the application questions are down below that the community members will have to submit.
And in like the consideration, like who we will select, like the idea is to make sure that we're like selecting people who will bring like different perspectives and who have have had, sorry, different experiences in the community, to make sure that the working group is like representative of everyone in the community. Should we read the questions or do?
Folks can see them on the screen, but I think if commissioners have questions for Peter, you and Anna, now would be the time, and then Michelle will probably move this to a vote for approval.
You guys, this is quite comprehensive. You guys worked hard on it.
Indeed. Where, can I ask, where will the application be? How will people know about the ability to apply for this?
There will be a press release that comes from the city, as well as a social media push, and it will be posted on our website. And folks will, community members will use Voluntary Edina to, there will be a link in all of those publications that will take them to Voluntary Edina to complete an application.
So I know we talk about diversity of voices. Are we able to get it to channels or areas that maybe aren't like the same people who pay attention to city stuff? Is there any unique avenue that we can use that we haven't maybe in the past?
That's a good question. I'm all ears to pass on to our comms team if commissioners have ideas.
Yeah, so maybe we can all think of that, whether it's, I don't know. Did I see Ukasha was on? Thought I saw him. But he has a community of Edina residents that are intrigued, and I don't know how plugged in they are, but it would be nice if you could somehow reach out to his community.
Yeah, and we will share as soon as the application is live, which will be, once this is approved, it'll be made live 12 hours later. I'll share the link with the commission as well, so that you can share it out with any networks that you're a part of.
Cool, great.
Great.
Any other questions? Cool. Okay, so I say we to get a motion to approve the working group charge.
So moved.
Was that Commissioner Seeley?
Indeed.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lazar.
Answers.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so roll call.
All right, Commissioner DeCane.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Commissioner Lanzis.
Aye.
All right.
Cool. All right, so do I move on to the next thing, or is there anything else?
Nope, I think we're getting into Clean Cars Minnesota, and let me just open up the attachments here. And so since the charge was approved, I'll send the link either tonight or in the morning for the application, so that folks can see that and share it with their networks.
Cool. Well done. Okay, so this is a last minute addition to our agenda. I was approached by John Anderson, which many of you know from Conservation Minnesota, to see if EEC and the City of Edina would be interested in supporting the MPCA rulemaking to adopt clean car standards. So a little history. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically Clean Cars Minnesota in 2019, Governor Walz proposed or wanted to pass a clean car standard. He dubbed it Clean Cars Minnesota. And the MPCA is charged with basically making sure our air and water is clean and that we're healthy people. So they have the charge right now to start this rulemaking process to see if they can make this clean cars standard be approved for the state. Basically what it says is that the city would adopt, or not the city, the state would adopt standards for low emission vehicles, or LEVs. So it's basically just getting standards that would lower emissions, reduce pollution, and through fuel efficiency. So that's one part of it. And the other part is to get more zero emission vehicles. So they call it ZEVs rules that are available. So like electric vehicles that are available at the state. Right now, most, and these are recommendations for automakers and what they provide the state. So the cars that we would get in and they would provide for us would have lower emissions, and they would also give us more choices for EVs and zero emission vehicles. Right now, most EVs, a lot of the inventory that automakers have are sent to states that have these low standards. So there's only 14 states in the District of Columbia that have clean car standards. So we would be in addition to those. So there's something else I wanted to say about that. Oh, the one thing that's interesting is that the emission standards that we want to adopt are actually the same standards that were put in place through the Obama administration, but have been rolled back. So unfortunately, because they were rolled back by the current administration, it's more up to states now to try and adopt those standards on their own. So my hope is that the EEC will see value in the MPCA moving forward and adopting these standards to help reduce pollution and give us more choice for vehicles. It would hopefully help the state reach its goals that were actually signed into state statutes by plenty, which is interesting. Right now, we're not on the path to reach them. So this is a tool to hopefully get there. So the hope is, so the MPCA, the rulemaking process is that they have two dates that they have a hearing to hear all the information that they present to a judge, sorry. And they'll have 4 information dates online. So 4 separate online meetings that the public at large can come and learn about it. They're taking input that will be then handed to this judge, and then she will rule. So I think so what I'm asking, or what we're asking, is to approve a resolution of support, which is also in your packet, and Grace can put that in. So the goal would be, or the hope would be, that the EEC would approve the support for this, and then it would go to council, and council would then also approve it. And that would just also help push this initiative, or again, the more people that can support this, the more likelihood that the MPCA will get a positive ruling on it. So any questions of anything, or why we're doing this, or what I can help with? Well, I must have done such a fabulous job explaining it.
Let's do it.
You did.
Okay, so if there's no questions, then would I ask for a motion to approve? Is that the next step?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so motion by Commissioner, who was it? Manzer, and second by Commissioner Seeley. All right.
Great. So
we have time. Yeah.
So Commissioner DeCane.
Aye.
Commissioner Haran.
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin.
Aye.
Commissioner Manser.
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley.
Aye.
Commissioner Lanzis.
Aye.
All right.
Seems like it approved. Cool. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate that. I'm excited. I'm really excited to get more EV choices, like, so I can get my Hummer.
There you go.
I don't think it would fit in my garage, actually, but okay. All right. So chair and member comments. What do we have? Do you have any other working group things? I think I told about the business recognition program already. So is there anything outstanding that we have? No? Okay. Staff comments?
Just a couple things from me. Similar to the resolution of support that you just saw Commissioner Haran present, staff is working on a resolution of support for Xcel Energy's latest IRP, which is related to their I think this is a 15-year energy planning plan. And so the city of Edina is joining with neighboring cities and advocacy groups to request that Xcel Energy accelerate their retirement of fossil fuel energy sources and in turn accelerate their integration of renewable sources to reach their goals of going carbon free faster. It is still in draft form, so that's why I can't share something this evening, but know that that is in the works on the energy side. And
oh, Grace, is there one like organization that's the point on all this? Or is it
the Institute for Market Transformation is the primary group who's organizing a letter among cities to make recommended changes to provide comment to Xcel Energy's IRP process.
Okay. Well, thanks.
And that is actually the only thing for me to share this evening. Thanks.
Have we actually covered everything in our agenda? Wow.
Wowza.
I thought this would be a lot longer. Anybody else have any parting comments? Huh. Okay. Then do
Nicely
I
done,
have
Michelle.
a motion? Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for your patience, everyone. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
Move.
Second.
So I didn't hear the first one, but Commissioner Lanzas, and second by Seeley, Commissioner Seeley.
And I'll do the closing vote. Commissioner Decane, Commissioner Haran,
Aye.
Commissioner Hushin,
Aye.
Commissioner Manser,
Aye.
Commissioner Seeley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lanzas,
Aye.
and that'll do it.
Cool. Thank you all. Appreciate it, everyone, and have a fabulous rest of your evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good a month.